So listen, class, that interruption after 15 minutes of recording came at a pretty poor time. But just be tolerant of me. I'm kind of learning Screencast-O-Matic, piecing the pieces together. All right, so this is going to be the second recording for workshop number 6. And I'm trying to introduce absolute addressing, and this thing interrupted me, but what are you going to do? All right, so anyway, what I was saying is that because I want to reference cell B1 in the 4th row, I'm going to put equals B1 in cell D4. All right, and then it will reference cell B1, equals B1. But when I want to copy that formula over to the E column, it gets messed up because it's going to reference the C column instead of the B column. So what I had done is I copied it over when it was still a relative address from B1. In D1 I had equals B1. I copied it over to E1 and it didn't do the right thing. So now I've gone back in and I've made the formula in C1 a D4 rather. In D4 I've made this an absolute address. I put dollar signs in front of the column and in front of the row, and this is going to anchor these column and row addresses, so they always point to B1 no matter where I copy this formula. So now when I copy this formula, $B, $1 over into any of these other columns, then they all start to reference cell B1 instead. So if I look here, since I put the dollar signs in front of the column and the row, the formula doesn't change. It remains the same as it was in the original column. All right, so the other thing that I wanted to just show you is something called naming ranges. So right now, when I wanted to add up all of the expenses for this person, I had to put in the cell addresses. That would be D6 plus D7 plus D8 plus D9 plus D10 plus D11. All right, that formula right there. Now what I could also do is I could set it up so that all of these cells have range names. And I'm going to do that, and then I can use the range names to populate the formulas. And this is just going to make our life simpler, because you can imagine if you have this really big formula and it's not a nice orderly group of cells, the cells that you're using in the formula are all over the place. If you've named the ranges, then it makes the making of these formulas a lot easier. So in order to name the range, what you do is you go to the Formulas tab, and then over here they have defined names, and this is create from selection. So what I'll do is I will copy this whole range from C6 all the way down to O12. I'm sorry, let me put the word total expenses here. Okay, and let me just double check my notes before I do something wrong. All right, so we're going to select the cells C4 through O12. Okay, so we have that selected, and then we go to the Formulas tab here, and we select Create from Selection. And then it says, where are the names that we want to use for the defined names, and they're over here in the right column. So we click right column and it says OK. So after we've done this, if we go up here to the the box that shows us where the cursor is sitting right now, even though we selected a block of cells, it acts as if the cursor is sitting all by itself in C4. So if I click this little down arrow, then it should have showed me the names, the defined names. I'm not sure why it didn't. Let me just do this over again. So I block out the cell, then I say create from selection, I say right column, and I say OK. Left column. Okay, that's the reason. There wasn't anything in the right column. So go to the left column and say OK. And now if I click on this little down arrow, we see all of these names. And each one of these has been assigned to the rest of the cells. So if I select one of these names, the down arrow, let's select food, then you see that it blocks out this row of information. So if I wanted to create a formula down here, instead of using the names of each one of the cells, the cell addresses that is, I could type equals rent plus transportation plus food plus entertainment okay, and then what it's done is it's given me these 4 cells. It's added them up for me. So you can imagine how much nicer this would be if I was having my cell addresses spread out all over the place. Alright, so at this point I want to go back into the lesson that is prepared for us by Pearson. I just wanted to cover a few things that came up in some of the previous workshops before we got deeper into this. So let's go back into the Pearson file, and here it is, the one called Golf Marketing. And we had created an Excel table, and I was saying that every other row of this Excel table has a darkened color, and that's very helpful. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put our cursor over here in I11 that is, and we're going to write the word tax, like this. And now we want to add a formula in here that's going to draw from the tax information that's sitting in the golf report. Oh, before I say anything else, because we have an Excel table set up, as soon as we add something to one of the sides of the table, it's automatically absorbed into the overall table, and all of that nice every other color row shows up, and the title of the row shows up as well. Alright, so we're sitting in cell I12, and in here we're going to type a formula that's going to reference a cell that's over here on the golf report. So over here on the golf report we have the current tax rate. Why we want to sometimes reference a cell that's just in one place is that the tax rate might change. Like for instance here in New York the tax rate is 0.0825. So I don't know where this golf course is, maybe someplace out west where the tax rate is pretty low. But this isn't going to work for New York. So if we wanted to change it, we could just change it over here, and everything on the golf data tab that pertains to taxes would change as well. Alright, so to reference this particular cell, you notice that it's on a different tab. So we're going to type equals, and then we're going to put a single quote, and then we're going to put the name of that tab, which is Golf Report. It doesn't matter whether you capitalize it or not. I'm going to capitalize it just because I'm the professor. Okay, I'm going to type Golf Report, And then I have to put a exclamation point, and then I have to put $B, $3, and then I'll put a asterisk because that's not the end of my formula. So I'll put $B, $3, and then an asterisk. Okay, and the asterisk is for the multiplication. All right, so we're going to multiply this times the value that's in E12, which is the food order. And you see how, because we have the named ranges, it puts in this @ sign and then food order in the square brackets. And then we can press enter. And so it's going to tell us how much tax has to go against whatever is occurring in that food order column. Now you'll notice that the formula copied itself down on the whole column. And it did it like this because this is an Excel table. Whatever you do in one of these rows happens for all of them. So it makes life a lot easier for us, simplifies our life. Now what we want to do is we want to give this entire row the same formatting. Instead of it being just numbers, we want it to go to accounting. So if we just click here on this down arrow up here and we go to accounting instead of general, then the $sign will show up there, and when we press enter, oh, it didn't go for the whole thing. Let's see. In order to make it go for the whole thing, just put your cursor on I11 and you get the black arrow pointing down. So click on that and the whole column gets highlighted, and then select accounting instead of general. And now these are $sign numbers, and it looks a lot better for our purposes. Alright, so the next thing that we want to do is to add another row to our table. So we're going to go all the way down to row 212, just one more row, and in the first cell over on the left hand side in 212, we're going to put in the number 201 because that's what number record this is. And you see when you press enter that this particular row becomes part of our table. Alright, so the date is going to be the same date that we have in the other place above. So I'm just going to do Control-C to copy it and then Control-V to paste it down there. And in the next cell here, I press Escape to get rid of that funny symbol. And in this next cell, we're going to put 8 and then full colon, not semicolon, 8:30, another semicolon, another full colon, 00, and that's going to be AM, space AM. Okay, and in this particular column, where it's the party size, that's going to be a 4, and the amount of food is $104.80. And then the next column is going to be hotel, because that's what kind of a guest this is, a hotel guest. And then the next one is going to be how many carts, there are 2, and the state is LA. And then the formula is already there. Alright, so this is enough. I'm learning how to break at the appropriate point, so I'm going to just end this second video right now and pick it up with the third video when I'm ready to do that.